All right, everybody. Day 3. It's Wednesday. I literally don't know what day it is every day. I'm like, what day is it? I don't know. Time is circular and flat. We are talking about the confirmation hearings of Amy Coney Barrett, day 3. Today was kind of a day. There was more questioning. Tomorrow is outside witnesses. I got a little bit more clarity on what that means today. It's going to be like a standard FBI background check or something. And then I don't know what outside witnesses are, but super exciting today. In addition to my co-host, Jess Braverman. Say hi, Jess.
Hey.
We are joined by Communications Director of NCJW Minnesota. NCJW also works on Courts Matter, Beyonce super fan, and just light of this world, Kristy Wesson. Hi, welcome.
I'm so honored to be here. Thank you for having me. And I love that you included the Beyonce thing, because that's actually very important and a big part of my life. You did forget, I'm actually the Director of Communications and Programming. So
I'm just going to
Do you want us to start over? Because
yeah.
I'm
a little quite an oversight.
Yeah, but I always tell people it sounds super impressive, and then you realize that we're a staff of 3. So we just all have to be in charge of a lot of stuff.
You're just outing yourself.
That's me. And then in addition to that, can I say this, or do you want to say it? That I lead the Courts Matter Minnesota Coalition. Yep. And so the Courts Matter Coalition is a coalition of organizations and individuals that want to ensure that federal judges reflect the diversity and values of the American people, and that they are nominated and appointed in a timely fashion. So I think that's why y'all invited me.
It's one of the reasons.
Which is like the antithesis of the hearings today, which are like, it doesn't matter who a judge is or what they think or believe, like the law is the law, like, right? Like, we know that's not true. So I'm so glad Courts Matter exists. And I'm so glad NCJW, I'm a big NCJW fan.
Same.
We're big fans. It's a big love fest.
Love. Mm-hmm. So let's jump in to today. I actually had like the first category of today was just like dumb shit people said. Because there was a lot of it, and it was it came at the like most random times. Like it would just be like stupid thing, and it's like, where did that come from? So we're going to cover that, but I just want to remind folks watching at home, feel free to drop questions in the comments. So stupid shit people said. Kristy, I'm going to go to you. Let's talk about Senator Ted Cruz.
Every time that guy opens his mouth, I stand more and more in awe of the fact that he keeps getting elected. It is stunning. I can't believe how the lack of brain cells. So anyway, the thing that got me today is he was talking when he started his line of questioning or his statement or whatever, he had to mention that it was really noticeable that Democrats weren't in the room, the Democrats on the Judiciary Committee, and that it must be because they don't approve of this, and also because they just know that she's going to be confirmed and they're not happy about it. So they're basically throwing a temper tantrum. And then Dick Durbin from my first home state of Illinois jumped in to say, no, actually, Ted, it's because we're in a global pandemic and not everybody should be in the room right now. And it's just like the way that they twist things, and it's like a chamber of gaslighting and cheating, like all of it. It's just gross.
Well, Mike Lee, positive for COVID, just like in there without a mask and talking to people, which is just, it's rude and stupid.
I think he picked someone at some point. I don't know. He didn't, but I wouldn't be surprised.
Like, who would be, who knows at this point? And there was another part too at the very end where I think it was Lindsey Graham was talking about like, doing this in like a timely fashion, and like a president nominates and then we confirm. And I was like, really? I'm sure Merrick Garland would love to have a word with you about that. But I
hope somebody's just embracing Merrick Garland for like the foreseeable future.
Right.
He seems like such a lovely man, and just in general, I think. Yeah. And like, can you imagine sitting through this?
No, I can't. I really can't. I mean, well, we all had to sit through it. My blood pressure's through the roof. Right. Let's talk about the good old days of segregation, as Lindsey Graham called them today. the good old days.
It was
I'm
so
not
like
wrong.
natural coming out of his mouth that I was like,
Yeah.
oh, the good old, like it just rolled off his tongue. Like,
You know how like I'll say, I'm Erin May Quaid, I'm the advocacy director of gender justice. He said it because it
Yep.
sounds like he says it a lot, right? And then they had the nerve to go through and be like, nobody's questioning Brown v. Board of Education. It's decided. I'm like, I don't know, because you just said the good old days of segregation.
Justifiable.
Oh.
Yeah.
Jess, you turned off the hearing when a specific word was said.
laundry. Like this woman is about to become a Supreme Court justice, and you have a senator sitting there being like, who in the House does laundry? Like, who?
Yeah.
Like, why? I want to ask like every male candidate for any position, regardless of what it is, like, you know, if you don't wash your own underwear, like you're out. I mean, I think that's actually, that might be fair, but like it was the stupidest way to end his
A hearing.
questioning.
Yeah, it was
Who
Senator
was it?
Kennedy of Louisiana. Well, and it's just like, it's so funny, like the way that they leak some of their sexism too. Like he cannot look at a woman and be like, I don't get how anybody does your laundry if you're working. I mean, it's just like, I don't know.
There's also like, he also asked her, I think, like, are you a racist? Like, so when you are doing a jury trial, you start with like a bunch of jurors and they're in a panel and you can ask them questions to figure out like, is this person just, can I exclude them for cause? Meaning like they're so biased in some way that they're just out, or do I like choose to strike them? Like you have a certain number of jurors you could just say no to, but it's limited. And there are definitely judges who think like all you can do is ask a juror, are you racist? But like everyone just says no. Like there's really other follow-up questions. I guess the difference with jurors is like the rest of, like they could say no to that, and then the rest of the questions they actually have to answer, unlike a Supreme Court justice who's getting a lifetime appointment and I guess doesn't have to answer anything. So
It's, I mean, that's kind of a little bit what this is too, right? Like it doesn't really matter. She could have said, yeah, I'm a racist, and it literally wouldn't matter. They would still confirm her. They would still install her on the court. I mean, you know, but it was a very dumb question. And what did it answer? Nothing. Although we can talk later about the things she did or did not say about race, and maybe other people can come to their own conclusions. Any other dumb shit people said today?
I wasn't taking notes. I'm sure there was.
Yeah, no, it's been a long day. Well, then let's go into, there was a whole thing about Title VII and Alito, Jess.
Well, there was like just my thoughts on Title VII and Alito, and here's my thoughts. They didn't work. Somehow my thoughts didn't end up in the hearing, but
What?
I know. The idea that like it doesn't matter what someone's background is and what their religion is, like I think it's true. There shouldn't be like a religious litmus test. I mean, there's lots of Catholic people who are in government who are elected year after year, and I think that's fantastic. Same with Jewish people, Muslim people. You know, I don't have a problem with that premise. What I do have a problem with is the idea that like it doesn't matter if you grew up like repeatedly being taught that like gay people or trans people are lesser, or Black people, or you know, however it may be. And then that's not going to affect your judicial decision making. And I think a really good example is Alito, who often decries, like he's often complaining about how much Catholics are discriminated against. But if you look at his dissent in the recent Title VII case, which is where the Supreme Court found that the sex discrimination provision of Title VII of the Civil Rights Act of 1964 applies to transgender people. And that made Alito very upset. And he went through this parade of horribles. It's a term that gets used a lot in the legal field. I think Erin laughed the first time I used it.
Maybe it's not kind of my favorite phrase.
In life in general, like, yeah. We made some parade of horribles jokes that I'm not going to make here. But you know, the idea like if we protect trans people from employment discrimination, the next thing you know, they're going to be like using bathrooms with us and like, dude, like you have probably used a bathroom with a trans person and just don't know it because
the court did not fall.
Probably nothing happened, like you peed and you left and it's fine. But it's, you know, it does actually, like if you grew up being taught that certain people are second-class citizens and certain people are lesser, or they're, you know, even if it's like they're morally lesser, I mean, that can absolutely invade your legal reasoning on really important rights that those people have. And so I think it's just ludicrous to say it doesn't matter. It's not that she's a Catholic, like, you know, I'm Jewish, Kristy, you're Jewish, Erin, I think you're Christian. Like it's not, it's not that. It's more just like, what effect does it have on you when you think about people's rights, but you grew up being taught certain people were lesser? And I think that's what was really kind of like, when she said sexual preference, yesterday when she was talking about sexual orientation. I mean, people are taught like being gay is a choice. You can pray the gay away, and I'm not saying that's what she believes. Like it might have just been a slip or whatever. But if she's surrounded by people who refer to it that way, and she doesn't know gay people and she doesn't have gay friends, if that's true, I mean, it is a problem. And I think it's just ridiculous to claim that it's not.
Well, she had a quote yesterday that said, "My policy views, my moral convictions, my religious beliefs do not bear on how I decide cases, nor should they." And I just like, that is not true. And it's not true for any judge. It's not true for any person. Every judge shows up to work as a full human who has experiences and views and beliefs and a whole life that impacts everything they do. And so we have to stop pretending that judges are like some different kind of human who's able to just like section off everything that they've lived through and experienced and how they view the world, and then just like call balls and strikes. Like Jess said in a previous SCOTUS chat, if that was the case, if we could just like, if it was just balls and strikes and there's no person that's required to do it, we could just feed it into a machine and it could just say like constitutional, not constitutional. And that's just not how people work.
Right. And I think you can absolutely grow up in a setting where you are taught that certain people are lesser or sinners or immoral or whatever, and still judge fairly, but you should probably explain why. Like, what work have you done to overcome this?
Right.
Or why do you still think you can be fair even if this is what you're taught? Because I think it is possible. Like, I think you could be an excellent judge despite that background and adjudicate things fairly and look at all people in front of you equally. But I don't think it's too much to ask that you explain how it is that if this is your orientation towards gay people or towards Black people or towards whoever, like if this is kind of what your background is, how are you going to make sure that it doesn't affect how you adjudicate cases? I don't think that's too much to ask of someone who's going to, have a seat at the highest court of the land.
Right. And I have kind of two thoughts on that. I did not go to law school because I couldn't have gotten into any of them, and I just am not cut out for that kind of thing. And, but if I did, I feel like, and Jess, I'm looking to you for this answer, I suppose. I feel like you could make the argument that somebody that wants to go to law school, that wants to take that path, is doing it because of the morals and values and their background and how they want to make sure that there is justice for people. I would imagine that would be part of it. Maybe it's a stretch. I don't know. Yeah. I just feel like if you know that you want to be like you really, I mean, for her being an academic, dedicating her life to teaching, to mentoring younger people, you would think that comes with some sort of, yes, like there's a background in you that makes you maybe want to do that. The other thing that I was going to say, we didn't talk about this earlier, but I think one of the senators maybe asked her today if she had read any books on race inequity, anti-racism, and I could be off record here. We'll need to fact check this, but I don't think that she could answer that question, or she had said that she had not read any.
That's interesting to me. I'm biracial, I'm Black biracial, I have a white mom. And so as the white mother of Black children, that you have to learn things to bring them through the world as Black people with experiences that you've never had. And so I was really, if that's true, I'm really struck by the fact that yesterday she talked about watching the lynching murder of George Floyd with her daughter, and it was really upsetting. And then how could you move through the world? Like, she's raising Black children, right? You have a duty to move them through the world and know that the world is going to experience them differently than they experience your white children. And so it is surprising to me that she hasn't done work on that, particularly because she is the mother of Black children.
Right.
Speaking of children, today, Amy Coney Barrett called kids in cages, ripping children away from their mothers, a hot political debate, which made me want to jump off my roof. That's the thing that like keeps me up at night. It's a thing that is like this burning ember of, I'm never going to lose this like air of, I'm so constantly anxious. And it's because of that. Sterilizing women in concentration camps at the border and ripping children away from their parents. And I can't believe somebody called it a hot political debate. Just because terrible people decided to do it does not mean it's a debate. Sorry, I'm going off here.
Right. And I think if it could be publicly known that she's like anti-abortion, like how many times did the Republican senators mention it, that she's anti-abortion, she's anti-abortion. And if it could be publicly known that you're anti-abortion, but you can't just say I'm not weighing in on whether it's constitutional. I certainly find it horrifying myself. I mean, I don't know if anyone else read the report that really went into detail on how the policy was actually going, like how they were actually doing this policy. Like they were taking away like breastfeeding children from their moms. Like I worked
need to take away the children, Jeff Sessions said.
and I worked in family court, and you know, I represented kids. And when we would have like hearings, like sometimes like kids that young would need to be removed from the family, but we would often have hearings like within 3 days of the removal. And it was very serious business when it's a child that young, because they really do need to bond with their parents. They need to actually like be physically with their parents. And so we would have to weigh like the risk to the child against the harm of removal. Like the courts actually had to consider, because it's inherently harmful to remove the child. Like that was part of the legal analysis. It's
Right.
not a controversial, like it is not controversial.
Well, Kristy, I cut you off. Go ahead.
Well, I also always go back with the separation of families at the border. I always go back to the the good old days of
The good old days.
not segregation, because those were not, but you know, the people that claim to be pro-life, okay, that you're not pro-life and putting kids in cages at the border. That is not pro-life to me. I think to anybody. I get really hung up on that. That is, to your point, Erin, that's a sticking point for me. Like, you can't make that argument.
I actually can tell you how like the logical conclusion for anti-abortion activists and extremists get to kids in cages. And it's because, so we are in reproductive rights, health, and justice. We believe that every person who wants to be a parent should be a parent. They should be able to parent the children they have in safe and thriving communities, that people who do not want to be pregnant should not have to be forced to remain pregnant and give birth by the government, right? So ours is all about, we do want people to have children who want to have children. If people don't want to have children, they shouldn't have to, and the government shouldn't force them to. And anti-abortion folks believe that the government should tell you when you have to remain pregnant, if you get to keep your kid, you know, so it is the logical conclusion that if the government does get to tell you when you have to be pregnant and give birth, then yeah, the government gets to tell you when they take your kid away, everything else be damned. And so it is a logic, right? It's a through line. They've just misnamed it pro-life, because it doesn't have anything to do with that. It is about the government controlling your ability to parent, or you getting to control your ability to parent. And so we believe that individuals get to make that decision, and they believe that the government gets to make it. And that's what it is.
Fine, but I think it's shitty logic.
It's terrible, and it's not a hot political debate, and anyone who says so is a terrible person.
Correct.
Interrogate your life and figure your shit out.
Yes.
I think so. Going off of this trend of being anti-abortion, there is a strain of anti-abortion extremism that does want to criminalize IVF, or in vitro fertilization, which a number of like millions of families in the United States conceive their beautiful children through IVF. I have loved ones and friends who have done that. And you know, it was asked of her, because this is a belief within the letter that she signed saying abortion should be illegal. The beliefs of the group who organized that letter believe that IVF should be criminalized. And they asked her, would it be constitutional to criminalize IVF? And she was like, I don't know, I can't say. And that was horrifying.
Yeah. I felt like there were so many horrifying pieces like that to name. You know, the whole, when you don't answer something, that's an answer. That's not the right, you know, phrase.
Right.
But yeah, like when you were saying earlier, neutrality is a decision, and
Right.
you know, you're saying something without saying something, and we all know what she's trying to say, you know.
Right. If you're neutral on the source of racism, that's a choice. If you're neutral on whether climate change is harming the earth, that's a choice. You know, it's not neutrality. And Jess, did you want to jump in with anything? Because I feel like I'm talking a lot today. I think I have a lot of feelings today. I'm just kidding.
I'm in a like, oh my God, day 3 of this. It's just really like, it's just pathetic how little we're asking of someone who's about to take such an important role and be such a decision maker. And the idea, like, nothing, you know, all of the notepad stuff, like, oh, she didn't have notes, she didn't have well, no, there's not a single question in the world that's a hard question if you don't have to answer it, right? Like, I just think it's just, there's not enough time to really vet someone for this position. There's not enough time to really ask in detail, like, you know, the idea that we can't question her about her faith, it's like, I have zero issues with her faith whatsoever, no, even what she believes, but like, you can't even figure out how she's going to get from a place where, you know, she may believe that abortion is like literally murder, but how is she then going to make sure that if she has a case in front of her where a state has imposed a restriction on abortion, how is she going to make sure that that doesn't affect her ultimate decision? I don't understand how that question is not being asked of her, and without her being able to answer that question, I just don't know how. We have no faith she's going to do it. So
I mean, we don't have to though, because this is the part that I think is the most infuriating, is that they've been, you know, the Republican senators, the Republican Party put in their platform, we will nominate judges that will overturn Roe, Obergefell, which granted marriage equality, and the Affordable Care Act, or Obamacare. And then they nominated Amy Coney Barrett, who has signed a letter saying that abortion should be illegal. So none of it's confusing. And we are choosing to be like, what's going to happen? I don't know. That is a choice that people are making, to be like, pretend nothing else exists outside of this hearing room. Only the answers she's giving to these questions are the only thing that we should take seriously, and not literally everything else. Going back to Amy Klobuchar's point yesterday, follow the tracks, right? Mm-hmm. So we're in like kids in cages and being able to parent and not parent. So let's talk about Griswold. That was a case that it's the underpinning, I believe, for Roe. It was a case out of, is it Connecticut?
Mm-hmm. Griswold v. Connecticut.
Thank you. Griswold v. Connecticut, and whether married couples had the right to access contraception under a right to privacy. And this is what underpins Roe. And so there were a lot of questions today about Griswold. Was that rightly decided? I think it was Senator Blumenthal who was asking a lot of questions, and very well. Just talk a little bit about what you heard in that exchange.
Yeah, so we've been talking about it on other days, but really there's this issue where originalist judges get to say that they wouldn't overturn Brown v. Board of Ed. Brown v. Board of Ed is about racial segregation in schools, and it prohibits, you know, basically says like the 14th Amendment prohibits racial segregation in schools. And it's not entirely clear, right? Like the 14th Amendment doesn't specifically mention schools. It doesn't specifically mention, like, years back in Plessy v. Ferguson, the idea was like separate but equal is fine. And so that got flipped, and then you get Brown v. Board of Ed. So originalist judges have to kind of explain how they wouldn't overturn like precedent that we think is really important on issues of race. Like they're sexist, they're homophobic, but they're not racist. And so Brown v. Board of Ed gets called like a super precedent, which is a totally made up term that means nothing. Other than it lets them signal that they're not going to overturn it without having to explain like why. So Griswold is a really old case that's been relied on for a long time. It basically finds a right to privacy in the Constitution through the fact that like so much of the Constitution is really fixated on privacy. Like the word privacy may not specifically be in there, but like the whole Constitution is about privacy, right? Like, you know, search warrants and property and like all of these different interests really come down to privacy. And so Griswold underpins also Roe, because Roe is also based on that same privacy right. So if you drop Griswold, Roe drops with it. So she keeps saying, I'm not going to answer questions about Griswold because it's the underpinning of Roe. But Griswold is like a long established, like if Brown v. Board of Ed is super precedent, Griswold's super precedent, and she admits it because she's like, Griswold's never going to be challenged. What state is going to pass a law saying like you cannot get emergency contraception, because that's how the challenge would have to get to us in the first place, and that's never going to happen.
How the challenge would have to get to us though? No.
Well, no, because we have cases all the time where like, you know, a state will make a restriction on abortion that's so like it so limits access to abortion, like that it's basically like there's no more abortion, right? But they're not making abortion illegal, right? Like they're just putting these ridiculous restrictions on abortion. It makes its way to the Supreme Court, and let's say the Supreme Court strikes it down. You're still going to get a dissent from Thomas Alito, Scalia, when he was still with us, saying like Roe v. Wade was wrongly decided. So the idea that like you have like this is how the issue has to squarely be framed as like birth control is now illegal and then it works its way through the courts is not even true. And we've seen like case after case pushing back on anything involving the right to birth control, like Hobby Lobby, Little Sisters of the Poor. Like all of these cases are basically just pushing away anytime that the government decides as a matter of policy that it's really actually important for like people to have access to birth control that's affordable or provided through their insurance, or and we all get insurance, not everyone but a lot of us, through work. That's just the system we have in this government. So basically like that the birth control is contentious, it's debated, just like
Debate.
yeah.
I do love, one of the things that I love too is that like only when like our existence as people with uteruses or Black people or queer people are called into question, well, then it's a legitimate question. Like I can't help it that people are debatable. And there was a point today where they were talking about, do you think Obergefell was rightly decided? And she was like, well, it was a hot political debate. And I want to be like, do you think straight people should be able to get married? Like at what point, like who are you willing to call into question, right? So if straight folks can be like in marriage, why not gay folks? Is it just because some people hate gay people and it's a legitimate hot debate? I don't ever want to be like Nazis exist. Okay. So I actually don't think that some of the things that are up for debate are actually debatable just because assholes have decided they'd like to debate that existence. Do you know what I mean? You know what I mean?
I know what you mean. Got you.
Thank you. So I think we're coming up on 30 minutes. I think one of the other pieces I want to bring in was there was talk today about, this was from Senator Kamala Harris. She asked Amy Coney Barrett, do you believe COVID is contagious? She said, yes. She said, Kamala Harris asked, do you believe that smoking causes cancer? Amy Coney Barrett said, yes. And then she said, do you believe that climate change is happening? And then it's a threat to our air and the air we breathe and the water we drink. And she was like, I don't know. It's a matter of public debate. And I just, that was a remarkable exchange for me because it was like science, yes. Ugh, some people don't believe in science. So like, we'll see what the science says. Right now there are hurricanes after hurricane. We are in the, the like Greek alphabet for our hurricanes because we went through all 26, or I think they only use like 22 letters of the alphabet. So we're like on Hurricane Delta. There are wildfires destroying the West Coast. The derecho ran through Iowa. We just got rain here not that long ago from Hurricane Delta. Like climate change is creating, it is dangerous. It is killing people. It is creating climate refugees. It's ruining our earth. And it's not up for debate. Like it's just, it's weird that it's happening while people are like, gosh, I don't know. Let's debate about it. What does the guy who doesn't believe in science think? More next. So that was a remarkable exchange. Kristy, I think I cut you off.
No, I will just point out that if Kamala asked me anything, I would agree with her. So,
yeah, for real. You'd be like, yes, definitely.
Oh, yeah. I mean, she scares me, first of all, like, in a good way.
Yeah,
but
she's a poor lady.
Yeah, every time she comes on, I feel myself like, I love her, but I feel myself getting like tense. Like I'm like, oh shit, here it comes. Yeah.
Okay, well, let's end it with this. I liked this question. We have a Slack channel for gender justice. It's the question of the day. And so this is the question of the day that I put in. So I'm going to leave it with this. If you could have asked Amy Coney Barrett one question in the hearing, what would you have asked her? Kristy or Jess, I'm going to start with you actually. Yeah.
I keep thinking, and I don't have an answer for this because it's so hard to just ask like one question.
Fine, tell us the 6 questions you'd ask. I'm interested.
Oh, there'd be a whole like cross-examination. Get back to me. Ask Kristy.
Okay, Kristy, go ahead.
I mean, the first question I would ask is if she's a mother, because I think we're all dying to know that.
Yeah, she never talked about it.
Nope, and nobody else did either. So that's a mystery yet to be solved. But honestly, I would ask her. I would ask her how she feels okay about going through this process and how she doesn't. I mean, this is clearly, an end game career goal for any person in law, I would imagine. It's a huge deal, but it feels tainted. for this administration to nominate her first and foremost during a global pandemic. Secondly, announcing her nomination at a super spreader event. Thirdly, I mean, I could go on and on, having a hearing where 4 of the senators have tested positive for COVID and one of them won't wear a mask. It just like, it's like, how many, like, I'm a big believer in karma. How many signs do you need to know?
Yeah.
That
God's talking to you, girl. Are you going to listen?
Like, I'm not like a super religious person, but I'm like, listen, someone is trying to tell you this is not a great idea, you know?
Yeah. And I too think about how, like, you know, the worst person in the world has nominated you. Like, how can you feel good about that moving forward? Just like a really abhorrent person who has no regard for any human to then be up there and be like, I'm a totally legit. I mean, everything is suspect, right? So yeah, that's a good question. Mine would have been something along the lines of like, Judge Barrett, you're the mom of Black children. You talked yesterday about, you know, the moment or when you watched the murder of George Floyd with your daughter and how upsetting that was. Talk to me a little bit about how you understand racism to have impacted Black Americans, and in particular, how the judicial branch might have played a role in that. Like, I would just love to hear her have to explain that. And I'm interested into why there weren't more questions along the lines of like, tell me how you understand this. Tell me how you understand this. And it could be very well be that it is like a scope issue that like the Judiciary Committee can't ask questions like that. But the way they were asking questions doesn't really seem like they couldn't ask questions like that.
That's interesting. I didn't realize that there was actually, I should know this probably, that there is some sort of scope, like some sort of, you know, outline or boundaries that they have as to what questions and how far they can push.
Yeah. So like, for example, at the state legislature, you know, we have a education policy committee and education finance committee. And in the education policy committee, we could decide that we have year-round school, but we could never really talk about the cost because that's the education finance committee. So it's like the jurisdiction of the committee dictates that. So but it didn't really see, like, if you can ask somebody, are you a racist, or who does your laundry? I feel like you could ask, how do you feel like racism through the judicial branch might have impacted Black Americans? It seems like it's within the scope.
I feel like we got to like who does the laundry, but we didn't get into like what brand of laundry detergent, and that is probably
That's what you would have asked.
No, I like your
I do the laundry, so
I like your questionnaire because it like starts from that assumption, which is correct, that the law actually has perpetuated racism. So it's like take that out of the equation. Like, yes, it has. Like, how I assume she'd like cop out with like a Dred v. Scott, you know, Dred Scott. Sorry, not Dred v. Scott. The Dred Scott case, or like some older case where the courts have found that like Black people aren't people. But then I don't know how she'd answer that like as an originalist. So it's actually an interesting question, because if you're an originalist, like the original framers were like incredibly racist. Although I bet if you asked them, they'd probably say they were.
Yeah, I mean, they certainly were.
Yeah.
I think this brings me to like one of the last things I wanted to say is that for this whole charade, it was like Amy Coney Barrett was like, I have no agenda, I have no policy agenda, whatever. I'm just an originalist. And like, let's be very clear that originalism is an agenda. It very much is an agenda. It is a very clear statement about who you think are people, who you don't think are people, who has rights, who doesn't have rights. And as a Black queer woman, I am like appalled by that brand of originalism, because apparently there's numerous kinds. But there was a quote from Justice Thurgood Marshall on the bicentennial of the Constitution, and he reminded Americans that the founders never intended to abolish slavery, and asserted that the Constitution did not contain profound wisdom, foresight, and a sense of justice. It was written by people who enslaved people and did not see women as full people, and had not experienced the full breadth of humanity that we've experienced right now. And so I guess it's just worth naming that, like, saying you don't have an agenda and that you're then neutral on all these things and that you're an originalist, that is an agenda. And let's not be confused about that. Yeah.
Oh, someone asked, is it typical for there to be so many real answers or commitments to any cause in a confirmation hearing? I have the chat. I have a 2-screen situation.
Yeah. Good.
So you can actually read all the transcripts. It's kind of cool. It doesn't sound cool, but it is cool. You could like
Alright.
actually go online and read, except Brett Kavanaugh's is missing. But you can go back like and read like every transcript. You just have to flip through the boring opening statements and then you get to the interview and it's all in there. And I do think based on having reviewed a bunch of those transcripts, she definitely like was way more closed and answered fewer questions. These hearings are also not normally like 2 seconds long. So
Right.
it like this whole process is extremely unusual, and her like refusal to answer questions, I think it's not like, it's true there is the Ginsburg rule where you don't like state how you'd like prejudge a case, but I definitely think this took it to the next level.
Well, let's be clear, Justice Ginsburg at her nomination or confirmation hearings talked about the right to decide, whether you're a parent and how central it is, body autonomy. So she wasn't cagey about how she felt about it. What she did say is like, I can't prejudge a case that's not before me. And there's a difference between saying, here is a value that I hold, and here's how I would decide a hypothetical case. And, this whole hearing, Amy Coney Barrett didn't say, here's a value that I hold. And I think sometimes it's because it's like, y'all don't want to hear what value I hold there. And I also can't prejudge a case. So it was like, I have kids, I like football, and I'm from Indiana. And those aren't things to like judge people on for a Supreme Court seat. It's just, those are all things are irrelevant there. Kristy, any closing final thoughts? We'll wrap it up.
So tomorrow, so these are witnesses tomorrow. Why are you laughing?
I can't believe there's more tomorrow. I mean, this has been short and rushed. It's just
Yeah.
it's not fun. Okay. Like, it's not a fun thing to watch.
Nope. It's
It
real
is windy AF outside, by the way. Sorry.
It's yeah. So tomorrow, so you said to me like they don't actually have, so do we know who's testifying tomorrow, or
like is it Beyonce?
Well, I hope so. Oh, got it. So
Megan Thee Stallion.
Megan.
That'd be great. No, I think they do a background check, which is standard, and I think they like report that out. I'm not super clear on who these like outside witnesses are. At some point, Lindsey Graham said like there's like 4, 4, and 4, so 4, 4 against.
Yeah.
So I don't know who the Democrats are planning on calling. I don't know who the Republicans are planning on calling. I'm assuming it's her children, maybe her, the lady who does her laundry or the man who does her laundry. I don't know. So tomorrow's kind of like up in the air. I do know maybe today I should have brought wine, because tomorrow is probably going to be less having to listen to Kennedy.
I did see yesterday, actually, because they submit letters of approval or letters of recommendation or whatever they call. So I thought that was funny, like the different, the different parties and the different letters. And there was
the family council.
And then there was one that was like the national sports shooting or whatever. And I was like, oh, good. Well, as long as they've submitted a letter of approval, I feel much better about this whole process.
Yeah, that's fine.
Pheasants be damned.
It's fine. But yeah,
because
Brett Kavanaugh, when Christine Blasey Ford, I don't remember any other witnesses besides Christine Blasey Ford, but maybe no.
They might have had, I think they had an extra hearing for that. It was a different day or something.
Right. It was a horrible day.
Wild. What a weird world we live in. Yeah. I can't believe, so just like a fun fact, since 1969, Republicans have appointed 15 Supreme Court justices and Democrats have appointed 4. I just learned that recently. So that's fun. And this will be so if Amy Coney Barrett is confirmed, she will be the 5th Supreme Court justice confirmed to the Supreme Court who was nominated from a president who did not win the popular vote.
Yeah. Want to hear another fun fact?
Yes.
Just on this note. So the Trump administration, or Trump and the Senate, has confirmed 218 federal judiciary positions in less than 4 years. Obama, during his entire 8 years of his administration, 8 years, so double that, obviously, because we're all math whizzes here, he confirmed 324 total.
Yeah, they left open 100 courts or seats, including a Supreme Court seat, and held them from Obama, but like court packing.
Right, but then at the debate, they made it seem like they just didn't fill them, that they just like forgot about it.
They were like, oh crap, the judicial branch. Oh no.
As they were like leaving the White House with the keys, they're like, shit,
Ah,
that's what I forgot.
the courts. Yeah. Woof. Okay. So, Jess, any closing thoughts? Did I already ask? I might have asked both of you this, and maybe that is the cue to close. We will be back tomorrow, Jess and I will, for day 4, the final day of our SCOTUS chat. And I don't think we're gonna have a guest, but maybe we will. Maybe it's Beyonce. You don't know. So tune
Or
in.
a secret witness, a surprise witness.
That'd be awesome.
Thank you to our special guest, Kristy Wesson and NCJW. We love them dearly.
And Courts
go
Matter.
to Courts Matter. Yes, go to Courts Matter. Can you donate to Courts Matter?
No, but you can donate to NCJW. That does
Yes, give money to
NCJW.
NCJW. Yes.
Yes.
And if you're freaking out about reproductive rights, that's correct. Please do that, but also give money to unrestrictmn.org, because we are doing the work in Minnesota to protect and expand reproductive rights, because those are going away nationwide. And thank you for joining us. We'll see you tomorrow, everybody. Bye.